what I'm seeing. The levels of exclusion, the amount of children that are just put in isolation, worrying, very worrying. Teachers just constantly, like, you would start a year with a teacher and then halfway through you can't find a teacher. Teachers just can't. The turnover is crazy. And I don't blame them. They have entered into a very honourable profession aimed to teach and educate and to propel young people into the best future possible for them. And now they have entered into what has become behavioural management. They are social workers. They are safeguard officers. They're trying to manage classes of 30 to 35 children, half of which are neurodivergent. So, and we have no budget. We have no TAs, teaching assistants, who are going to support us. It's a mess. it's nothing short of a mess. But I'm going to unpack for all of you guys who are experiencing some shakiness with the education system, just so that we are all on track with what's actually really happening. We're going to start off with the academies. In 2010, the coalition government, they initiated the academy system. And the aim was for these academies to take up failing schools and to ensure that they are developing themselves and improving themselves to be at a decent standard. However, over time, all schools, I would say about 80% of schools at the moment in the UK have become academies. And academies essentially are schools who are no longer run by the local authority. They are run by, or they're funded by the central government. And they are also funded by private interests. So what we can say is the academic system actually is a form of sneaky privatization of the education system. They are funded by the central government and they're also funded by private interest companies. What does this mean? It means that they have a lot more autonomy than maintained schools. Maintained schools are schools that are still run by the local authority. They can, when it comes to subject choices, the curriculum, they can make quite a few adaptations. You'll find that academies also have a little bit of a business element going on. Things have changed, and parents, I submit to you, or anyone who has children or works with children, you have to be inquisitive about the nature of that particular academy and what they're about. And I'm going to get into that into this video, because certain academies have a particular ethos. And if you understand the nature of your child and they don't fit into this ethos, let me tell you right now, they're going to have a very difficult time. They're going to have a very difficult time. However, that being said, academies still have to follow the same procedures with children with special educational needs. They still have to follow the same procedures and policies around exclusion. And so there are certain elements that still maintain their same standing. Schools have faced an unprecedented set of challenges post-COVID-19. There were issues prior, several issues prior. However, COVID-19 has brought everything to the surface and has also created a whole new set of problems, coupled with the cost of living crisis. One of the major things that we are seeing, our schools have seen a sharp increase in children with special educational needs. It's probably one of the costliest challenges and one of the things that in my day job I'm having to deal with the most. And I'm talking about a rise in about 28% increase in the number of children receiving special educational needs support within schools over the last decade. And this comes with if you understand anything about children with special educational needs, they have a specific right to an educational healthcare plan. And this healthcare plan is something that is reviewed annually or when there are significant changes made to the child's educational support. But it comes with a specific budget attached. So that could be connected to the necessary materials that this particular child will need, whether that be theraplastin, whether that be a specific fidget toy, whether that be a TA that's going to be sitting with that child. It comes with an allocated budget. So now what I'm seeing is that the threshold is high, has become really, really high. has become really, really high because many schools cannot afford, and local authorities cannot afford, to meet the demands of all these children. Fundamentally, the Children and Families Act 2014, I made a note of this, so just bear with me. The Children and Families Act 2014, Section 20 defines a child as having special educational needs if he or she has a learning difficulty or disability, which calls for special education provision to be made for him or her. Now, a child is considered to have a learning difficulty if he or she has a significantly greater difficulty in learning than the majority of others of the same age. And I'm gonna hone on that. We're gonna come into that because, okay, or has a disability which prevents or hinders them from making use of facilities of a kind provided for others of the same age in mainstream school or mainstream post-16 institutions. What I am seeing, particularly in the year 9 mark, is a lot of these schools are shoving children with learning difficulties, and notice that I'm referring to learning difficulties and not disabilities, into isolation. And they are essentially finding strategic ways to have these young people put off roll from their schools. It is a thing. It is a thing. I'm talking some children that I've worked with, they have been in isolation, which is a punishment for poor behavior, for 2 years. Now, it's not proportionate. Even if a child is consistently behaving outside of the social norms of the environment, it has to be investigated. And this is why I decided to make this video, because I have a plea, one for parents. If you are seeing that your child's behavior is not following the developmental standards, or there's something peculiar, investigate it. Please investigate it. There's a lot of young people with undiagnosed neurodivergent that is not being responded to, essentially. And in the school environment with classes of 30 to 31, 35 children at some points, when your child is not conducting themselves in line with the behavioral standards and the expectations of the environment, they are a nuisance. And so, while children who have diagnoses, have an EHCP, have a educational healthcare plan, teachers understand that they have learning needs, teachers they've formulated a strategy as to help their child, or they put them into a special educational needs school or an alternative provision. What I'm finding is the children with the learning difficulties are having a horrible time. They're having a horrible time. Their parents are having a horrible time. Because everything is just seen as bad behavior. And in an institution whereby teachers are burnt out, there are so many students, there are several safeguarding issues that have arisen due to the cost of living crisis. People do not have the time for your child. People do not have the time for your child. So if you aren't going to be inquisitive, and if you aren't going to show up as a parent and fight some battles, they're just going to shove your child in a corner. They're just going to shove your child in a corner. And I hate to say this. It's not always intentional. It's not always intentional. Sometimes a lot of the children with learning difficulties who have a significantly greater difficulty in learning than their peers, it's as a result of childhood adverse experiences. So there are issues within the home that are trickling into the school environment. Children with at least 2 or more adverse experiences, and that could be emotional neglect, that could be financial issues, that could be overcrowding in the home, that could be substance misuse with their older peers or their parents, are more likely to develop behavioral issues or social delays. A lot of the special educational needs, yes, there's genetic issues, but there's also a lot of trauma that has affected a child's ability to learn, to acquire knowledge, to process, because their brain has been in fight or flight. It's either hyper aroused, hyper vigilant, not able to concentrate because it's set up in a way that it's focused on its survival. That the process of sitting down in a class, studying and training the brain, that brain hasn't fully developed to be able to follow the social standards. When the processing system of the brain is under defects or underdeveloped, it makes it challenging to acquire knowledge. And parents who are having to, as a result of this cost of living crisis in the situation right now, work 3-4 jobs, aren't able to be as attentive and nurturing to their children, read books to them, take the time to help their children to develop their vocabulary, be inquisitive about their emotional needs, are increasing the chances of greater learning difficulties. Pupils with special educational needs and free school meals, so they're relatively very poor, have the highest rates of suspension and permanent exclusion. And the most common reason for suspension and permanent exclusion is persistent disruptive behavior. Now, schools are not inherently a stressor, right? But they are a structured system with expectations, with routines, with social norms. Schools are demanding environments. And their aim is they're designed to promote growth, discipline, to help with performance, structure. For some children who, particularly those who have had stable homes, who are resilient, this is a positive eustress, which helps them almost kind of motivates them to organize, to achieve, to build a level of competence. But for children who are stress sensitive, they've come from trauma. They've come from difficulties at home. This becomes a place where, a place of too many demands. It becomes almost a toxic stressor, a distressing environment, curating and triggering maladaptive coping behaviors. There is a rise in absenteeism, post-COVID, school avoidance is an issue that education and welfare officers are having to deal with. Schools are battling. Parents are battling to get their children into school. There are several reasons. But what I'm finding, social anxiety is a huge one. Currently with Gen Alpha in general, I just think, particularly the cohort of children I work with, I've been working with 11 to 19-year-olds, dealing with a lot of Gen Alphas. Very socially anxious. Very socially anxious. School drama blows completely out of proportion due to technology. Nothing is contained within the school environment. If there's a fight within school, there's going to be a new WhatsApp group, there's going to be a new Snapchat, there's going to be a new TikTok something, mabob, someone's made a private account. Everything trickles over. There's no separation of states now. You're never in your house and then school. Everything is always following you. And so you have those who got very comfortable during COVID of being at home. There's that crowd. But you also have those who just relationally are struggling. Particularly children who have some special educational needs, many a times undiagnosed. You have waiting lists for children and the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service of 2 years to even get any diagnosis. Sometimes I'm saying 2 years, you're doing pretty good, 2 to 5 years. And they're just struggling in the school environment to connect and to handle social situations. So I will have pupils that I'm working with, I would say with 33% to 60% attendance, missing more than half of the school year, gaps in learning. completely behind in reading and writing. There is a rise in overall emotional and behavioral difficulties among young people, and there's a shift in attitude around education in general. You know, this whole idea that school is a complete waste of time, you don't need school to succeed, school doesn't do anything for you, all you need to do is blow on TikTok and then you'll be fine. And while it is true, as someone who loves education, I understand that there are several paths. And unfortunately, the current school system is archaic. It does not meet the demands of this society. It's not pulling on the strength of several students. There are several students who have creative brains, who work and operate differently, who are more kinesthetic learners. And the structure of the current school system does not support them at all. And so they feel as though this is a waste of time. I feel dumb here. So if I feel dumb here and if I feel stupid, then I'm going to find another way to obtain validation, to feel like I'm someone of importance. And that comes by being the class clown. That comes by being a riot. That comes by being the cool kid that's messing around and truanting. Because if I sit in class, I'm clueless. Like, I just don't feel like I am competent in this sphere. I actually have all these different gifts and talents that are more creative, but I only have one art class and I have to sit through hours of science. And so because the school isn't catering to a whole cohort of children and has left them with no tools or strategies and ways in which they can thrive, it has meant that they have just followed the path of complete disengagement. And overall, through technology, social media, you know, we're in a microwave generation. There's a complete generational cognitive shift right now. Attention spans are shrinking by the second. Teachers are planning lessons and things are just going over students' heads. It's a dopamine driven time. TikTok, scrolling, literally doom scrolling. So there's a preference for immediate rewards. Over this kind of long-term contribution to this long-term plan. When I'm speaking to a lot of students who are in year 9 and year 10 and I'm speaking to them about GCSE and their future plans, that they're literally living each day as it comes. And as children, there is permission to be creative and there's permission to not place so much pressure on who you're going to become and to know your complete life plan at the age of 13 and 14 and 15. However, even the idea of consequential thinking, 0 to none. 0 to none. Great impulsivity and risky behavior. One person says, "Oh, let's go down to the basement, or let's go here and do this, and let's go here and do this" during the school hours. And you'll find students just running off and running around, not thinking carefully about their actions. And yes, there may be some hyperactivity, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in that may be diagnosed, but there's also just bad behavior. Parenting struggles, emotionally unavailability, neglectful and permissive parenting, snowflake parenting where there's no boundaries, and then you've brought your child into an academic environment, an institution that has boundaries, and they can't cope. And so now you have teachers who are doing 120 different jobs. They're being a father, they're being a mother, they're de facto social workers, mediators, mental health first responders. I mean, I've walked into classrooms and I'm like, this is a zoo. This is chaos. You have children, one is high on gummies, one is vaping in the corner, one is jumping on the table. You've got one student really trying to learn, and the teacher is just overwhelmed. There's no TA for the child who has special educational needs because they've cut the budgets down. Teachers are quitting, and I don't blame them. What they've signed up for is not what they're doing. It's too much. Some of the disrespect that some of these teachers are experiencing is unfathomable. It's unfathomable. And they're not being protected by the institutions that they're in. I would leave too. It's unsustainable to operate in this way. Now more than ever, as parents and as individuals in this society who have children who are attending education, you have to take complete responsibility of your child's education and how your child is being educated. If you are discontent, take action. Don't watch your child fall through the cracks. If this academy has outstanding results, that may be amazing, and that may be an amazing place for your child to be, or it could be a horrible place for your child to be, because your child's skill sets do not fall in line with what they're looking for. You will find that academies are always being very financially, how would I put it? They're always being very financially cautious because they are receiving funding from private institutions, whether that be universities, whether that be charities, whether that be churches or different organizations or corporations. However, in academies, you will find the head teachers, deputy heads. Money, 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 money. I say this all to say, because academies can be quite bespoke, you can't compare one trust to another trust. So academies are also put into trusts. And this is to ensure accountability across different academies. As I said, it can be quite bespoke, and they're trying to always aim to improve the standard of education. So they work in communities, they work in trusts, and different head teachers and different teachers will go for meetings, and they will share ideas and they will share practices. Statistically, we haven't yet seen the effect of the academy trickling down to the ground. What I mean by that is, there is no statistics to prove that academies are doing better than maintained schools, or that they have improved the opportunities for learning, they have improved the standards of learning for those who were in failing schools significantly more than those who are in maintained schools. So this is where, when the government is pushing the idea of academies, yes, there's been amazing things that have happened through academies, but I do think I think we have to understand that on a political level, it's all to do with money and how are we preserving money, fundamentally. It's because currently there's about 80% or more schools in the UK that are now academies. So it's actually become the standard. It's actually become the standard. And one thing that has come about this being the standard is some criticism around the fact that a lot of academies have been slimming down the curriculum and cutting down some of their pupils, literally off-rolling pupils to produce really good exam results. The reason for the academy in the first place was that the aim was to pull these failing schools, gather them, and to rebuild them into academies so that there can be greater accountability once they're put into an academy and a trust to ensure that they are improving their standard of education that they're delivering. A phenomenal goal, okay? However, what has happened as a result, some academies, and I be working with young people for almost 5 years in inner London, I'm seeing this firsthand. I don't know how many appeal letters I'm going to write. I don't know how many appeal letters I'm going to write in this profession of mine. They are cutting out anybody who is going to affect their gradings, because with being in an academy, a lot of them are in trusts. So these communities or these trusts that they're in have standards. And so you will find that, and I'm going to get into it, they're off-rolling a lot of pupils. They're getting these very strict head teachers who are here for one thing: to see their school move from one level in the academic board to another. And that's great. But when it's at the expense of the well-being of the children, the holistic outlook of the children, that's where I have a big problem. And many parents that I work with have issues. My name is Dorcas Assuming. I'm a boundaries practitioner and I am also a therapist. And if you are experiencing some of the hardships that I've described in this video, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and just to provide some insight into what you're going through. There are situations that I can definitely try and assist you with. If you email me, I don't know how many appeal letters I've written for unjust exclusions. But yeah, thank you so much for listening.